Hi, I'm Peter Birch and welcome to today's show. If you're new to my channel, make sure you hit that like button and the subscribe button to continue to join the adventure. Today we're going to be looking at one of Australia's most iconic lizards. We're going to be talking about the blue-tongue lizard. That's right, the blue-tongue lizard. Come on and get into it. That's right guys, today we're talking about the blue-tongue lizard, probably one of the most iconic lizards here in Australia. And I tell you what, these beautiful lizards have really caused a big ruckus amongst the reptile keeping community across the world for so many different reasons. This is a beautiful example of a wild blue-tongue. It is just the normal colour phase, but even that in itself, it is absolutely a gorgeous animal. And you can see he's a little bit on the grumpy side. He's a little bit huffing and puffing right there. Now that's part of a bit of a threat display. Some of the cool things about blue tongues, I mean, there's so many cool things, but let's start with the very basic. Why do they call it a blue tongue lizard? It's because he has this big, bright, blue, broad blue tongue. Now he does flash that and flick it around. He uses it to sense or smell for food. The second thing he does is he uses that for defense. Now, how does he do that? Does he whip it out and lick it and slash it in your eye? No, he doesn't. What he does is a very false form of defense. He sort of sits there, puffs his body up, he'll arch his body towards the problem, which in this case is myself, and he'll arch his body up, making himself look bigger and scarier. He'll hiss and puff and open his mouth, and then he'll show his big, broad blue tongue. I guess you might be thinking that's not very scary, but bright colored things like reds, yellows, and blues means they're toxic in nature. So when we look at things like bees and spiders and snakes and all sorts of other animals, these bright blue colors typically means that it's a defense mechanism or it's toxic. The other cool thing is they're a short, robust animal, and you can see they only have these short, stumpy legs. Now, you're not going to find them climbing big trees or branches or sitting up in a branch there waiting, looking for food. No, these guys live down on the ground, very close to the ground. They basically sometimes don't even use their back legs and push and scurry their way through the deep leaf litter. That's the reason why sometimes these guys get misidentified as death adders. They have the similar sort of head shape, big broad head shape. They have the bands down the back, similar colors, grays and browns and blacks. And when those legs are tucked in, you can see why they would get misidentified. Now, blue-tongue lizards are absolutely amazing animals in the bush. These guys eat all sorts of cool things. They'll eat snails, slugs. Now you might say, how do you find snails and slugs? But amongst the leaf litter, you'll find all sorts of bugs and insects. He's also rotting vegetation, and that will draw in the snails and the slugs. Don't let them fool you. That big fat head means right there, they've got these big chunky muscles, jaw muscles right there. These guys can deliver quite a powerful bite. Now they do have quite long teeth indeed, and if you have the misfortune of being bitten by one of these, you'll definitely remember it. I don't know if he's going to open his mouth without trying to bite me, but very powerful jaw muscles. Now, why would they have powerful jaw muscles? Have you ever tried to eat something like an egg, a whole egg by itself? Well, that's what it's like for a blue tongue trying to eat a snail. They're big, strong, thick shells. Now these guys will just basically roll it to the back of their jaw here. They have a very enlarged tooth in the back of the jaw, right above the muscle, which they can deliver a very powerful blow to crush that shell. Now once they've crushed that shell, they're going to slurp down that big sloppy bit on the inside. Sounds pretty gross, right? But it's like when you guys are eating your oysters and all your other sort of slimy things like that. So these guys will suck that slimy bit down and eat it. Now, blue tongues are absolutely amazing animals living in this sort of terrain here. They like the grass, they like the leaf litter, they like the broken trees and branches and rocks, and they like little hollows and logs and stuff like that on the ground. So they live in just about every environment we can find. This here is the common, or what we refer to in Australia as the eastern blue-tongue lizard. Now the reason why we can identify it is it has this band that goes from the eye to the ear, that dark band that runs across there. So some countries, including America, they call them bandeds because they have almost like this black band across their eye. Now that's more of a coastal sort of thing where you have these bands. As you typically head out more west, which towards Cobar way, they typically will not be having these bands. Now these blue tongues are absolutely amazing animals. I mean, they go as far west as Cobar, like I said. The other cool things about blue tongue lizards is that these guys reproduce by live birth. They breed around July, August, and then basically within about 3 to 5 months, they'll start dropping babies. Now, obviously only mum can drop babies. They can drop anywhere between 6 and 26 live babies. Each baby comes out in a clear membranous-like sac, and they'll tear their way out, and then what they'll do is turn around and they'll eat it. Now, when they come out, they actually have a little bit of placenta sort of material stuck to their umbilicus, and that's one of their first things they're going to do is pull that off and eat it. That's their first feed. Now, typically, if they don't eat that, they sort of typically struggle a little bit in nature. Now, like I said before, these guys are really adept to moving in nature and really love cruising around. Now, believe it or not, the blue tongues belong to a family called Taliqua, which contains some of the largest members of the Australian skink family, only beaten in size by the land mullet, who can get up to about 60 centimetres. Now, believe it or not, blue tongues do exist in Aboriginal mythology, and he's referred to as an old man. He's also referred to as a trickster and a powerful sorcerer as well. So therefore they are respected amongst the Aboriginal community. Now, these guys are true, absolutely amazing little lizards. They'll go to ground for about 3 months, become totally inactive, and rely on the storage of fat in their tail. Now, the coolest things about blue tongues is the tail. Now, that tail is a thick, really thick, heavy duty sort of material. Like all skinks, they can lose their tail. So you got to remember, when you're handling these guys, try not to grab them by the tail and pull on them really hard. Now, obviously, as adults, it becomes a little bit more intense, the pulling to remove that tail, but it is there for a reason. Now, that tail is used for storing fat. So in times of good, this animal will go out, pig out, eat as much as it can, and it will store the excess fat material in the base of the tail. Now, the other thing too is with the male blue tongues or male lizards, they have their sex organs stored in the base of the tail, so we need to be very gentle with those. You can imagine if it does happen to have some of its tail bitten off by a predator, let's say like a dingo, then the tail will actually form very quickly and seal that bitten off area, and it will start to regenerate. Now, sometimes it can take months, sometimes it can take years, but it will fully regenerate its tail. Now, that part of the tail that's removed, the bone in the tail will disappear forever. But what happens then, it'll actually replace the bone with cartilage in the tail and start to store fat again. So that's a pretty cool little thing, isn't it? And one of the other coolest things about blue tongues, I guess, today for the modern reptile keeper is that these guys come in all sorts of colors. That's right, just about every color of the rainbow. You can get white ones, pink ones, orange ones, yellow ones, gray. I mean, the sky's the limit with these things, and it is absolutely bizarre. All thanks to the blue tongue legend himself, Joe Ball, who's breeding so amazing colors and patterns. If you haven't checked him out by now, I'm sure you will. Look at this guy, he is absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, when these guys go into shed, sometimes what will happen is the skin doesn't come off properly around their arms or their little legs because they've got these short, stumpy legs, right? And what it will do is the skin will actually restrict the blood flow and cuts the blood off, which means the leg will die. Then it'll basically fall off. So as you can see, this lizard, he's still got all his legs, all his toes, so he must be doing something right. Got a little scar next to his face. But I tell you what, these guys are absolutely amazing. These guys can really take a bit of punishment. Unfortunately, I did a lot of rescue and rehabilitation for about 15 or 18 years, and I've seen poor old blue tongues cop the burden of a lot of dogs. That's right, dogs' bites. And I've seen one with a hole in the side of him, about a 50-cent size, and he healed up. Took him a couple of months, but he healed up and he was able to be released and live a very long and healthy life. I hope you guys enjoyed today's show about the common or the eastern blue tongue lizard. I really think they're absolutely amazing. Little bulletproof bulldog machines, powerful little creatures, a great icon for the Australian hobby. Make sure you hit me up on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and don't forget TikTok. And if you like today's show, make sure you give it a like. Thanks for watching CrittaCam.